Welcome, I'm Zane and you're watching Minding Your Business, where we focus on growth. Back during National Financial Literacy Month, I made an Instagram reel where I shared the top 7 money tips that I have implemented within my own business that every business owner should know regardless of their organizational stage. And I want to break those top 7 money tips down in today's video so you can gain a better understanding on how I implemented each tip and how you can do the same. And of course, before we get started, do me a quick favor and smash that like button, which helps with the algorithms of growing this channel and getting informative content like today's topic in front of people who don't even know that they need it. And be sure to stick around to the end, as we have a lot of material, and I mean a lot of material to cover that will definitely help you with the growth of your business. Now, when it comes to the overall health of your business, remember, your numbers matter. Believe it or not, but your numbers tell a story, and understanding that story will either make or break your business. According to the Small Business Administration, 66% of small businesses survive at least 2 years, while 50% survive at least 5 years, and about 1/3 of all new businesses will survive at least 10 years or more. And I have discovered that many businesses fail not due to the lack of active cash flow, but rather to the lack of planning, which first starts with getting a thorough gauge on their financials. Let me break that down again. Small businesses aren't failing due to the lack of active cash flow, which you may think, but truthfully is due to the lack of planning, which is the root of where a problem can originate. And we don't want any problems. So let's jump right into money tip number 1, creating a budget. Let me tell you, when starting my previous consulting firm, I didn't want nothing to do with the numbers, let alone managing a whole budget. I was very intimidated and overwhelmed with the thought of it, as I was 20 years old and somewhat fresh out of high school with no background in finance. Like, I was someone who really hated numbers. Now, I loved money, but I just hated dealing numbers. Not only is it a lot of responsibility, but when you pull up a business plan template online and flip over to the financial section, you're immediately bombarded with charts, graphs, equations, and formulas. All of what looks like is designed for an accountant. It just brings back all the trauma I endured in grade school from math class. It's completely overwhelming, which is why many people skip over the financial section altogether. This was actually one of the reasons why it was urgent for me to develop and design my own business plan templates, which I will link below, because I completely understand the emotions of it all, and particularly with the financial section. Once I mastered how to simplify the section for myself without the assistance of an accountant that I couldn't afford anyways when starting out, it was my goal to share those same steps within each template, which can easily be implemented and transformed, because again, your numbers tell a story. So skipping over this part isn't good. However, I actually wanted my business partner to manage the financials, as she was more experienced, but because I was handling the daily operations of this business, it was vital for me to learn how to maintain our financials, because you can't manage a business successfully if you can't manage money. Period! It just won't work. Your operations and having a budget goes hand in hand. And it doesn't matter if you're only in the conception stages of your business. Matter of fact, before you even incorporate a business, I always recommend having a business plan in place. But at the bare minimum, you should at least have a budget, if anything else. See, a part of budgeting is to understand how much money is going out and how much money we need to make in order to stay afloat in our operations. And a part of staying afloat is earning net profit, which we'll get to a little later. However, budgeting helps with goal setting, trimming costs to avoid overspending or spending money that you don't have. Also, it helps us prepare for busy seasons and slow seasons, because those do happen. And speaking on slow seasons for just a minute, a few months ago, I was sharing my opinions on what not to do when business becomes slow, and particularly with trying to go out and get a job. Because as we know, getting a job is a job in itself. And that didn't sit very well with a lot of people. Like, they were really on my neck about it. Like, I was getting a little scared. But hear me out. Whenever your business is slow, you should be working on ways to speed it up. So instead of spending countless hours trying to find your next client, you should be working on ways on how you can better serve the clients that you currently have, even if you only have one, or if you're waiting around for your next opportunity, find a way to create it within your business. This is why planning is so critical, because business doesn't just become slow overnight. You should be able to see it several weeks, if not months ahead before it actually happens. But just know, getting a job is counterproductive for the growth of your business. And for the final benefit of budgeting is that it helps us maintain a healthy financial picture, especially for tax filing purposes. Now, when it comes to creating an actual budget, I would suggest creating a spreadsheet to separate your fixed and variable expenses from your revenues. Now, your fixed expenses are expenses that will remain the same each month, which may include rent payments, employee salaries, insurance, loan repayments, and etc. While your variable expenses are expenses that may change from month to month, and these expenses include utilities, marketing costs, office supplies or equipment, owner's salary, and any miscellaneous expenses. Once you have calculated your fixed and variable expenses and break out your revenue sources, you will have a better understanding on the future growth of your business. However, before completing your budget, there are a few elements you should include, which leads right into money tip number 2, separating your personal and business expenses. The worst thing you could do when operating a business is not separating your business from your personal expenses. Whether you are paying business expenses from your personal checkings account or buying personal items such as groceries or cat food with your company credit card.
What?
This isn't good practice, and it's what we call commingling funds, hence why budgeting is so important. Now, one of the first steps that I advise to my clients that are entering into business, or even if they're active in operating as a sole proprietor, is to open a business bank account. And to do that, you will need to obtain an EIN, which is an employer identification number similar to your social security number, but used for your business. And your EIN can be filed and obtained for free with the IRS. You'll just have to go to irs.gov and search apply for EIN and follow the steps, which shouldn't take no longer than 5 minutes to complete. But by not separating your personal finances from your business finances would jeopardize your personal assets and limited liability protection. For example, if you was to operate your business dealings from your personal bank account and God forbid someone files a lawsuit against your business, your personal assets such as your savings, vehicle, home, or anything of value would be at risk, as there's no separation between you and your business, regardless of the fact if you're incorporated as a legal entity or not. Because when you incorporate as an LLC or a corporation, you are granted limited liability protection against your personal assets. But if you aren't operating as an actual business, then you won't be protected as a business. Now, if you are a sole proprietor, which isn't an official legal entity and doesn't grant the owner any liability protection, you still need to be mindful, because by not separating your personal and business affairs would jeopardize your chances of being approved for a loan or any kind of funding. Also, you will run into major trouble when filing your taxes, as well as trying to write off expenses, and ultimately it will make it more difficult for you to manage your own cash flow. Just do yourself a favor and avoid this altogether by keeping your personal and your business accounts separate. And for money tip number 3, create a cash reserve. Creating a cash reserve is basically setting up an emergency fund for your business. We have all experienced a time when funds were tight and you were hit with an unexpected expense that you didn't quite plan for, whether it was a repair cost, replacing equipment, or a tax bill. It happens to the best of us. But you can easily prevent this by making sure you have extra cash on hand as you're completing your budget. Now, one thing about me is that I don't ever want to stress about money. Every dollar that enters and exits my bank account has a purpose. Also, I have a strict limit that I refuse to spend over, because I've been in some uncomfortable situations while owning a business that I don't ever want to experience again. And of course, taking out a business loan is an option, but this isn't an option I would recommend. For one, as a minority-owned business, it's not always easy to access funding. And I know firsthand from my experiences working with the Small Business Administration, which is why I always stress the importance of establishing our own funding and becoming our own banks, but that's for another day. And for 2, you don't want to put yourself in a situation that can be easily prevented with proper planning. Personally speaking, I went from being someone in 2013 who didn't want nothing to do with the financials, let alone managing a budget, to being someone who is now very purposeful with every cent while operating my business. And to share a quick story, In late December of last year, I tested positive for COVID, which took me a little over 3 months to fully recover from. I experienced pretty much every symptom except shortness of breath, which I'm thankful for. However, this really took a toll on my business as I was not able to function. During this time, I had a few large contracts that completely fell through because I was simply unable to fulfill my role by meeting those deadlines during my recovery. Honestly, I was really anticipating the money from those contracts.
Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
It was just one of those months where things were looking, a little tight. And while I'm fortunate and very appreciative to have an amazing team, we still had active contracts that we were working on. Nevertheless, while those contracts may have fell through, my business didn't fall through because I had a plan in place by creating a reserve just in case for unexpected events. And that was definitely unexpected, but I'm thankful I have yet had to touch it. So as you're budgeting and breaking out your expenses, you will have a better sense on how much it will cost to operate your business on a day-to-day basis and how much money you can reasonably set aside for a rainy day. And don't be too hard on yourself if you are unable to set a large portion aside in the beginning. Creating a comfortable reserve definitely takes time to build. But just remember, in this case, something is better than nothing. Money tip number 4, pay yourself first. I know this may sound easier said than done depending on the stage of your business, but not enough business owners practice this method, which is extremely important. This is something that I didn't practice when I started my previous consulting firm, which I deeply regret, but was adamant about when I started Beast Elite. You should pay yourself before you pay anything or anyone else from your business. This has to be factored into your budget as well. And I don't care if you're only paying yourself 10% from each sale. You have to get into the habit of paying yourself consistently for your work. See, the reality is that you're going to need money to live off of as you have to support yourself financially, and this is something that you should never feel guilty about. When business owners put their personal needs to the side and don't factor in how much money they can comfortably take from their business, they will continue with this mindset until they're completely maxed out, which isn't healthy. I just don't believe in putting your personal needs to the side. However, to be realistic, you may have to sacrifice some things as you're growing your business. Now, if you are someone that is fortunate to have some level of employment while starting your business, I always recommend staying employed until the income from your business can replace the income from your job. However, if you don't have a job while starting a business like myself, then you have to become more aggressive and creative with generating revenue and get on a strict plan of what you can and cannot do as far as your current lifestyle, even if that means downsizing, because sometimes we have to scale back in order to scale up. Now, with being able to pay yourself, I would suggest creating a separate budget for your personal expenses. Just like with the budget for your business, you have to itemize your fixed and variable expenses to gain clarity on how much it will cost to live. Also, once you have finalized your budget, you may find that many expenses you can do without for a while until you're able to find better footing within your business. These are the same steps that I laid out for myself and followed. And as a result, I cut back on a lot of things that I honestly just didn't need and probably wouldn't have realized it until I started budgeting. Go figure. Now, once this step is complete, then you can move on to money tip number 5, and that's don't forget about your taxes. This gets business owners caught up all the time. I don't necessarily think business owners fail to realize that they have to pay taxes on earned income, but I think they fail to realize how much they have to pay based on their earned income. As a good practice, I suggest setting aside 30% of your income for Uncle Sam at the end of each year, because for any profits made, he's going to want his portion. It's just the price of doing business. And if in any case you get hit with a pretty hefty tax bill that you didn't account for, just know that you have the option to set up a payment arrangement with the IRS to pay that money back. Don't think that it's going to be the end of the world and you have to pay that money back all in one lump sum or else you're going to go to prison. No, you could simply set up an online account at the IRS and schedule payment arrangements until your balance is paid off. Also, as you're filing your taxes, please consider any expenses that you can write off to reduce your tax liability. These expenses may include, but aren't limited to, employee salaries, office supplies, utilities, inventories, travel expenses, legal and professional fees, and even educational materials or trainings like our online business development courses or ebooks. These are very important elements you should consider when it comes time to filing your taxes. Money tip number 6, apply for grants. Make applying for grants a part of your business model. We need to normalize obtaining free money to help support our business. I recommend applying for business grants as often as possible. I personally make it a priority to dedicate a few days of each quarter to source and apply for grants. And as a quick tip, once you have completed your first grant application, you should save that information as you can copy and paste it for your next application. But keep in mind that you may have to make a few tweaks from time to time depending on the request. Now, before you can actually apply for a grant, there are a few components that you must have in place to first include your organizing documents. Now, unfortunately, if you are operating as a sole proprietor, you will be limited on what grants you can qualify for, as most business grants are typically designed for legal entities such as an LLC or a corporation. This is just one of the downsides of operating as a sole proprietor. However, you must also have an EIN, bank account, tax returns depending on the grant, a physical address to include if you're operating from home, a website, and most importantly, a business plan. Once you have these components in place, dedicate the time to find grants that are available to you and your business needs. Additionally, you can consider a few sources to include grants.gov, the Small Business Administration, the Minority Business Development Agency, and Hello Alice to begin your search. I'll be sure to attach a reference link below of other sources that you can check out as well. And finally, for money tip number 7, reinvest into your business. For this point, I want you to think long-term growth. As I often say, in order to fund your dreams, you must invest in them first. Once you get to a stage of having extra money in your business, your focus should be how to best invest that money to promote your growth. Whether that's by hiring a new team member, a new coach or consultant, buying new inventory or equipment, or contributing some money towards marketing. You should make it your mission to want to improve your business operations as you grow forward, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, growth. And this concludes our top 7 money tips. Now, as we close out, please be sure to hit that like button, which helps with the algorithms, and please share this video if you found it to be helpful, because as we say here, the more we know, the stronger we can grow. Until next time.